It is 9:38 a.m. I would like to call to order a meeting of the Travis County Facilities Corporation. May I have a roll call, please?
Absolutely. President Jimmy Paver.
Present.
Vice President Cheryl Brown. Present. Director Wilmer Roberts.
Here.
Director Rebecca Weber.
Present.
Director Jan Wenig.
Present.
We have a quorum.
Okay, item 2, public forum, citizen communication. Is there anyone here who would like to speak?
Not that I'm aware of.
Okay. Item 3, consent agenda, approval of the minutes from the September 7th, 2023 regular meeting.
I move that the September 7th meeting minutes be approved.
All those in favor? Or no, I need a second. Sorry.
Happy to second.
All those in favor?
Aye.
Okay, on to item 4, discussion items, overview of Travis County Housing Finance Corporation. Housing Finance Corporation.
Yes, so we after we posted the agenda, we got notice that they would like to postpone that item until next month. So we will reschedule that for next month.
Okay. Item B, new modified terms for new development projects.
Yeah, so we'll pull that up. We'll have Mr. Plummer to discuss. The board is aware that the real estate committee has met, and I'm happy to see that happening. They provide a lot of feedback related to what we're about to discuss in terms of the desire to seek greater affordability. So what we have here are essentially what we went through with the real estate committee, 4 potential opportunities. Madeline, if you could just go up just a little, where you can see the number at the bottom of the table. Sorry, down. Okay, and so with that, I'm going to have Jim just walk through those 4 scenarios. This item is a discussion item. So with the direction we get today, we will bring back a resolution ideally next month, or maybe at the special meeting that we're having for the housing authority if you'd like to move forward as soon as that. So with that, I'm going to turn this over to Mr. Plummer.
All right, Madeline, can you pull up the memo on the screen?
Here? Or which memo, sir?
The I thought Patrick had handed out the memo that laid out.
It's up, Jim. It's on the screen.
Oh, okay. I just can't see it. All right, thank you. What we did was you had instructed us to look at trying to incorporate lower or more deeper affordable units. And so what we did was we analyzed the income that you're getting from a project today. And if you go down to the bottom of that memo, you will see a chart that has the income that you earn from what has been our standard deal, which is 10% of the units at 60% and 40% of the units at 80%. And over a 15-year period, on average, for at least a 250, 300 unit project, you should make about $8 million. Now, that $8 million roughly translates to 60% or more of the property taxes that the developer is saving. And if you include sales fees, that number will go up usually between 70 and 80% of the sales tax savings will be recaptured to you as fees. 1/2 of those fees go to help operate the housing authority, and 1/2 go into a fund that is designed to assist in providing very low income tenants. So we're trying to figure out what is the most advantageous way to provide those very low income units. So next we looked at, well, if we mandate having 5% of the units at 30%, what does that do on average to the fees that you collect? And so that would cut your fees in half. And in a 300 unit apartment project, that would get you 15 units at 30% median income. We then looked at, well, what if we require 10% of the units at 50%, 10% at 60%, 30% at 80%? And that results in an overall estimated income per project of $5 million. And then lastly, we looked at, well, what if we require a choice by the developers? They can either do 5% at 50 and 10% at 60, and then 35% at 80, or they can do 20% at 60% and 30% at 80%. That would reduce your income down to $6 million. And that reduction in income comes because we would lower our annual rent from 25% of the property tax savings to 15% of the property tax savings. We brought you two deals last month where we made them implement 20% at 60%. We reduced the rent, and the numbers seem to hold true. We've talked to many developers, and the developers have agreed that they can do 20% at 60% with a reduction in rent. At 20% at 60%, you are doubling the requirement under the recent statutory changes. And it puts you in a position where you still receive a reasonable amount of income. And theoretically, you would receive about $3 million per PFC deal that would go into the fund to assist projects that have units at 30% of median income. And when we get down to the next agenda items, we will show you how we would propose to use those funds in a tax credit scenario, so that instead of getting 5% at 30 and getting 15 units, you would actually get 10% at 30, doubling the very low income for actually lower cost. And so we believe that the most advantageous way for you to evaluate projects is to mandate doubling the state law requirement to 20% at 60%, continuing to make profits off of transactions, and to use those profits to more efficiently acquire units in the 30% of median income range. And so I think what we would like to pose to you is that we would work up deals utilizing that framework. As you know now, your deals have to be approved by the Commissioners Court. And so we'd like to take some projects to the Commissioners Court, educate them on why we believe this is a good structure, why the structure justifies the property tax exemption, and how we believe that utilizing this structure, we can maximize the number of both 60% units and 30% units that you can produce.
Okay, thank you, Jim. Questions? I mean, one of the things that I'd really like to do on an individual basis or here is to understand each individual's position on where they would like the floor for affordability to be, the understanding between the PSC and the tax credit deal, how that might affect the set aside. So I think just generally around the room, I'd like to just get comments on what people would like to see.
So I appreciate the advice. I really appreciate the way it's been laid out to us and how it's been described to us in a couple of real committee meetings. However, I believe that every deal needs to have some units for 30% AOs. And so I would like us to adopt the second column as opposed to the fourth column that council is recommending.
Other comments?
Yes, again, I also appreciate this chart work and the adjustments in the percentiles are very clear. I share the, an issue with the recommended fourth column where there's nothing in the deal itself at the 30%, which is what I think we've heard from County Commissioners Court, but I'm not on the real estate committee and perhaps this has already made the rounds back to Commissioners Court and this is acceptable. So I'm interested in discussion and hearing more from the real estate committee on how you came to this recommendation.
Jim generated this
Oh,
based on a request to look at different.
And I'll
levels
be
of
clear that
affordability.
I am on the real estate committee
oh, thank you.
and I am, just for
You have it.
myself,
I
I believe that we should be in the second column.
For the same reason, I'm looking to be consistent with what we heard at the joint session with the Commissioners Court, and I'm looking at column 2 as well.
You know, when I listened to the recommendation, and I look at the analysis that was done, I'm leaning more towards the fourth column. Because I think that there is some level of education that needs to be done. That's my thought.
I'm just, my general description, my analysis of this is, I'm looking at the fourth column. I think that from the beginning of my tenure here, we've talked about getting more affordable units, the ability to use the set aside for these 4% tax credit deals and to continue to have revenue flow in to the set aside leads me to believe that the 20% at 60 and the 30% at 80 would be a better way to proceed. So that's just generally my thought, having looked at this and talking it over with Patrick and Jim and others. So that's basically where I'm leaning.
Let's ask Wilmer, I think he's on.
Wilmer?
Yes, I agree with. Yep, I agree with the fourth column. And I think that's something that we can work to educate the Commissioners Court and let them know why we are doing this. Because cost of living in Austin is going to continue to rise, and we need to be able to have some funds to help assist those low indigent people. Okay, thank you.
Yeah, I also see it as a way for, I'm sorry, Jen, go ahead.
No,
A way for the Commissioners Court to get to the numbers that they want to get to. You know, ultimately, this is going to be their decision, that you kick this back down to us and we can re-engineer it. But ultimately, I think it will be up to them.
and that was my only question. Has anybody since being at the joint session with the County Commissioners Court run any of this by county commissioners or had a one-on-one to discuss the concerns of Commissioner Shea?
Well, I mean, she has reiterated to me, and I think from the dais that that's what she prefers to see. That's just what I'm commissioner, right? I just wanted to, I guess, I didn't mean to go back. I had a different one.
Well, yeah, since we touched on that, Commissioner Shea did reach out to me by Zoom as well as Director Rebecca Weber, and we had a joint session where she wanted to make sure we had no confusion over the mission. and we didn't, we refined that and also touched on her concerns for deep affordability. She spoke to us and educated us on that, but there was no reply. I didn't have the granular detail that's existing now, but I just wondered, is there a loop that y'all are in to get back to the commission?
So let me share. So I spoke with Andrea Shields after the commissioner's court session because there was some information that was being discussed about workforce housing and the PFC structure and what that could net in terms of affordability. I do believe that ultimately the goal is the net amount of 30% units, not necessarily the vehicle used for such. And Mr. President, if I may, I think if we could hear the following deal, it may help understand the application of the set aside. I think what the challenge is people are hearing about a set aside. We haven't applied it in a scenario where you see 30% units being developed. So it's hard to envision letting that go and not seeing any 30% units in a PFC deal because you haven't applied it in the scenario with a 4% tax credit. So I think folks are thinking, well, you show 5% at 30, it's not, you want more, but you're not applying it in any scenario. And it may be helpful to understand how that was used. So I think going forward, any discussion we have probably should include that provision about what that may mean and show what the set aside potentially would yield in a 30% in terms of the production of 30% units. Because I think that's where there's probably more of the disconnect. Because so if you look at it in isolation, you don't see anything happening with 30% units, and they work in tandem really. And so that's what I would say would be probably the most helpful in terms of bridging the gap and understanding.
And one of the things
One of the things we wanted to get input from you before we approached the county at all. If you told us, no, we're not even willing to look at this, then obviously we shouldn't be going to the county. So our thought process was that we get input from you and then we go educate the county. I think we have to come back to you and give you the county's input before you can make any clear decisions or determinations of what you want to do. But we thought this briefing was important so that you would understand where we were trying to go and allow us to go there. I don't think that we want to adopt a policy until we can adopt one that we know the county would find acceptable.
Can I ask a process question? So the county, the commissioners court, they don't approve what we're talking about right now. They approve of the end product, right?
Correct.
So as far as getting their feedback, that's all it really is. It's not binding in any way. Right. Okay. I just want to make sure I understood that when we're talking about going to the county, it's really just for advice.
Yeah, ultimate authority has been passed for them completely.
Wait, say that
Ultimate authority for
approval.
the approval of the deal has been passed to the commissioner's court.
I get that, but as far as what we're saying are
our standards.
Minimum standards,
Right.
They don't have any say in that. They just have a say at the end, yes or no. We believe this deal, benefits the county enough or not, right?
Right. And at that point, the deal is not, it's not a foregone conclusion that it's over, right? I mean, could it be re-engineered at the standards that
Sure.
the commissioner's court dictates?
So I'll say this, and there's developers here that might weigh in on this when they get their opportunity. I think we want the best state. We want to try to ensure that the likelihood of a project being approved. So I think for what it's worth, you want to have some consensus about where the commissioner is leaning in terms of their desired outcome. So I think for purposes of time and money and everything else, we would want to be able to have some good indication that the project is consistent with their vision. So that's why we want to probably get as close as we can. You're correct that obviously they could go to commissioner's court with something and potentially, I guess, negotiate, for that lack of a better term. But obviously we want to try to avoid that and create, put ourselves in the best position possible for There would be a win-win on all sides. So that's why we want to sort of go through this.
Just so I understand too, could the commissioners court adjust the terms of affordability at that level before they vote on it?
No. It would still, it would have to come back to us because we are the ones approving the project. I mean, so it's somewhat
Making a
semantics.
recommendation.
Yes, they will make a recommendation of how the project should be modified. So that's a timing issue again, but
Right.
so theoretically, no, it would have to come back to us first and then go back to the commission's court. In order for there to get further approval to move forward.
Government efficiency.
A lot of back and forth, so.
Yeah, right.
And one of the things that, you know, that I would like to add, is it's okay. Is I think that it's important for us to hear comments like the ones that we received from Commissioner Shea. So that we will address them, but our recommendation should not just be focused on that one commissioner.
Absolutely.
It should
Yes.
be the broad recommendation of what we've looked at and why we believe what we believe to be the best recommendation forward. And to educate them on why we believe that it's that. And I think that, you know, one of the things that I sense is there's so many different people talking to individual commissioners that it's creating a sense of confusion for us, right? And I do think that it's important that as an organization that we pull together a cohesive package that we can stand behind and say, you know, as a board, this is what we recommend and why we recommend.
And that's where we want to get to, that you all feel comfortable with what you're recommending. And that's the most important part, and then that will be vetted and addressed accordingly. So I do agree. I do believe that seeing the scenario applied in the scenario will sort of help you maybe understand a little better, not to say you're trying to sway your thought, you know, individual's thought process, but it will help to inform you a little bit more about a practical application of how you potentially will get all of what you want with the 20% at 60 because of the net proceeds that you can apply in another scenarios. So,
Right.
If you're so inclined, we could potentially entertain that and you can come back to this.
Any other comments or questions?
No, I mean, I mean, we don't need to come back to this, do we? We just.
No, we don't.
Okay.
Okay, let's move on to item number 5, action items. Resolution number TCFC 2023-17 to approve an application of an affiliate of NRP Group LLC relating to the proposed financing of up to $60 million of the cost of the acquisition, construction, and equipping of the Belmont Apartments and other matters in connection therewith.
Okay. Let's go to the amendment. The NRP Group is the prospective partner here. They are here in Mass. We like them. Is there, do y'all want to speak before we go to the, okay, all right. So would you like the presentation that could be pulled up?
That might be good.
Okay, so, all right. Sorry, it's not in color, but
That's all right. They were pretty pictures though.
yeah.
Is there a button or you guys?
We'll
just scroll down. Okay. Well, good morning, y'all. Thank y'all for allowing us to be here and present to you. I'm Max Whipple with the NRP Group. We also have Deborah Guerrero, who's our Senior Vice President of Government Affairs, and Jason Arechica, who's our Senior Vice President of Development. But I'm kind of leading the charge on this effort. So I will be the one presenting. So I know we came to y'all a couple of months ago about a different proposal, but we have an interesting new proposal we want to discuss with y'all. A little bit about who we are as a company again. You know, we're consistently ranked as one of the top 10 developers across the country, doing everything from affordable housing all the way up to market rate development. We work in 15 different states, but Texas is really where we do the brunt of our work. We've developed over 25,000 units in the state of Texas. the majority of those units being affordable. So a lot of what we do is focused on the 4% and the 9% tax credit program. We have done some of these public facility corporation deals as well, but really where we got our start is on the affordable housing side of things. So you can go ahead and scroll down. Keep going. Next slide. Or this is good. Just to touch on this, you know, I know we've mentioned this in the past, but we do handle development, construction, and property management in-house. And so, you know, at the end, you're going to have the contact information for Jason, Deborah, and myself. And if there's ever any issues during the construction phase, ever any issues during the management phase, there's issues getting a hold of the respective parties. I mean, we will be there to handle any possible issues. You know, we hope there won't be any issues, but in the event that there are, you know, construction team making loud noise, issues of that sort, we will be able to address those issues. So additionally, as we look at, you know, the development on the front end, we think having an in-house construction firm helps us look at economies of scale and how we can really improve these developments for the residents. So fast forward to the next slide. Sorry, one more. What we're here to discuss today is two project proposals, Belmont and Preakness. And so we're really excited about this opportunity because it's an opportunity to leverage both the 4% tax credit program as well as the PFC program to really maximize affordability and provide a lot of units for Travis County residents. So what we're looking at again is a 4% development with a PFC, which is going to create more than 75% of those units affordable. And by utilizing the 4% program, they have a process called income averaging. I'm not sure if y'all are familiar with that, but on the 4% side, just very high level, the requirement through the IRS is that the developments average to an AMI of 60%. And so what that allows us to do is target those very deeply targeted 30% units that are very important by leveraging those with 70%, 80% units on the opposite end of the spectrum. So the 4% program is really the best program in terms of getting that deeper targeted affordability because you are able to offset an average with those higher AMI units. And so move forward to the next slide, please, just to show you all a little bit about the location. We've really been focused on this area of Austin and Travis County for really the better part of 2 years because it's hard to see here on the black and white, and I apologize, but we are sandwiched in between the Goodnight Ranch master plan and the Easton Park development. So a ton of single family development that's going on there. A lot of the commercial is starting to come in right now. But as you can see, I mean, we're 10 minutes away from I-35, which, you know, we've got an HEB right across the way there. That's always how we gauge our proximity to things. We're 15 minutes away from Bergstrom Airport. And then, you know, I just drove past it on my way in today. I mean, we're 20 minutes away from Giga, Texas, which is now home to over 20,000 employees. We have a PFC development actually in Killeen, Texas, and they're busing in 4 busloads of Tesla workers every single day into the Gigafactory because there's not enough housing in and around the Gigafactory. And so, you know, I know we've discussed our Ross Road project and Rodeo project with y'all, and we're excited to get those projects going. But, you know, there's just such a demand for units in this area. And that's why we're really excited about these two proposals. So scroll down to the next slide. Just to give you a little bit closer look at the area, you can see there on the right is Belmont Apartments, which is the proposed 4%, and Preakness being on the left, that's the proposed PFC. We are working with our seller. He maintains ownership over those 2 parcels as well as the parcel in between. So there is a potential opportunity to come back down the road and look at a third development if and when the time is appropriate. And he's really looking at us to bring in the multifamily to help facilitate some commercial development along there. So we're going to be setting aside some pad sites that will hopefully, you know, be good for a convenience store, a small grocery store, things of that sort. But he's really looking to us to help, you know, facilitate the multifamily development that will help, you know, lure in those commercial developers. So we will be accessing right off Slaughter Lane there. You know, Slaughter Lane was just recently redeveloped. I encourage you all to take a drive out there if you haven't. It's you know, brand new roads. We don't have a lot of those, so it's fantastic. And so that's, you know, kind of high level the site location. You want to go to the next slide. We've got a very conceptual site plan. I mean, we're just getting started on both of these 2 projects. But really what we're looking at on the affordable deal is a 3-story garden style product, surface parked. And then on the PFC phase, we're looking at, again, surface parked, but really 2 4-story donuts. And that's just kind of more catered towards the smaller acreage we have on that site. You can see it a little bit, the site plan is still being refined, but we're looking at leaving that commercial acreage up front again for potentially a convenience store or some other commercial use. So our seller's still working on, identifying who that potential tenant would be. But there is an interest in potentially looking at one or even maybe two commercial parcels up front. And feel free to interrupt me at any point if needed. So please go on to the next slide. So this is a good slide. So this is talking about the proposed affordability. And again, this is very preliminary, but this is kind of what we're looking at right now. So across the two developments, we're proposing almost 700 total units. Again, 75% of those being affordable. We are showing the 20% at 60% AMI and the 30% at 80% AMI on Preakness, which is the PFC on the top. And then on the affordable, you can see again how we're able to utilize that income averaging structure to really leverage the 30% units. And so, as you've seen on kind of the numbers on the prior slides, those 30% AMI units do come at a very high cost. And so being able to offset those with the 70% units on the 4% program really allows us to provide that deeper targeting while still, keeping the deal in a financeable position. So again, on the 4% side, we really cater to families. That's really what our mission is. And so more than 50% of those units will be set aside at 3 and 4 bedroom units. A lot of the amenities you'll see in a couple of slides, a lot of the resident services we provide are really catered towards those family services. And so that's why we feel it's important to provide those 3 and 4 bedroom units. And then the Preakness apartments, that's going to be more just your 1 and 2 bedroom unit mix. So we've got a nice mix of 1 through 4 bedroom units. You can see only, I think, about 30% of the units are at 1 bedrooms. Everything else is above and beyond that. So, it provides us a good mix of everything from 30% AMI up to 80% AMI, and then also, having some market rate units as well. I'll pause there. Is there any questions, or you want us to keep moving? Okay. Next slide, please. You may have seen this in the past. Jim's probably put something like this together, but just to, again, reiterate who we're serving. This is a breakdown of the Travis County metropolitan area and the area median income across the county. And so we broke that down at those various income bands. So 30%, 60%, 70%, 80%. And I think it's important to highlight some of those jobs on the right. Those were taken directly from the city of Austin's websites. But you can see some of those jobs, teachers, police officers, nurses, and firefighters, they're the ones that are really, who we're serving, especially at that 70 to 80% income band. And, so many times we're seeing that those, we talk with those folks at a lot of our grand openings, and, they were commuting 45 minutes away to, be able to make it to their jobs every single day. So being able to provide that proximity to, downtown to the local areas is really what we're focused on. Move forward, please. We just got a couple more slides. Just to show you a little bit of, representative imagery of what we're looking at on the left being Preakness apartments, the PFC, and Belmont on the right. I mean, again, there's not a tremendous difference between the PFC finish out versus the affordable finish out. As you can see, we're talking vinyl plank flooring, granite countertops. I mean, it's all very similar amongst the two developments. Again, the Preakness project will be kind of that 4-story more dense product, but other than that, I mean, they're very, very similar product types. So move forward, please. I do want to touch on this. So on the 4% side, I know we've talked about the PFC in the past, but we haven't had a chance to tell you about what we do on the 4% side. But at all of our developments, we provide wraparound resident services. And so we partner with local supportive service coordinator. We typically partner with a group called CHR Partners, Community Housing Resource Partners. We've worked with them a number of times in the past. And you can see here some of the services that we provide, adult education support, healthcare screenings. What we take most pride in is our after school program. And so we have a dedicated children's activity room at all of our affordable developments, about 1,000 or so square feet. And we have an after school coordinator that comes and watches the kids after school from about 3 to 5. So, for a lot of our residents, they're working 9 to 5 jobs, aren't able to get back and take care of the kids after school. And so it provides them a nice place where they can come and do their homework, hang out with some of their friends, and have a healthy snack. So That's something we're very excited about. I will say the resident services are completely tailored to each unique development. So once we're about 40% occupied, what we do is we survey the residents and say, okay, these are the different services we can provide: education support, first-time home buyer assistance. What is going to be most impactful to the residents? And from there, we will tailor those services to be most impactful to that community. The other thing I did want to mention specific to this development, and what we've done in Travis County is, I know we're not immediately adjacent to transportation, and so that's always a concern, especially as we're looking at sites out in Travis County. And so this community service partner is going to be providing a shuttle service for our residents. And so we will, we have to work out the details still, but the plan is, and we've done this at other developments in the past, is basically Monday through Friday, we'll have set hours where residents can get access to pharmacies, grocery store, local amenities that aren't immediately there. And so, we're positive, and we'll have conversations with Cap Metro in the coming months, but we feel confident that, as Project Connect starts to move forward and some of the development, that there will be transit service in the area, and we won't need that service. But until there is, I think just because of the proximity to from our site to the nearest transportation, it makes sense for us to provide that for the residents. So I think maybe one more slide, or we're done. We're done. There's the contact information for our crew. So I will pause there. I'm happy to answer any questions that y'all may have, but again, thank you for allowing us to be here and present.
Questions?
Yes.
Farewell.
Will you please, put your project, if you can, in those 4 columns? Which of the 4 columns does your project?
So as it's shown on there, our project is adhering to the 4th column for the PFC program, which is the 20% at 60% and the 30% at 80%. There is a little bit more flexibility in the 4% tax credit program. We are showing 10% of the units at 30% right now. And again, the reason you see those 70% units is to offset the cost of operating those units. But I think we could go back to the table if there is interest in more 30% units and see if there's a way to add more of those to the affordable deal, the 4% project, and really maximize that. But this is just, again, preliminary proposal based off of our initial underwriting of where things kind of land.
Right, and so just to emphasize this point, it's a non-binding resolution. This is just allowing them to get in line to apply for the bonds.
That is correct.
And for those on the strategic board, you've seen an inducement scenario before where actually the intention is, again, the deadline is the 20th of October for allowing projects to be considered for an allocation, and then obviously you would come back and have your final approval subsequent to that submission and reservation.
Okay, any other questions? Okay, can I have
So I move that we approve resolution number TCFC 2023/19. Your second. Right.
Mr. Roberts,
Yes,
did
Yes. I didn't hear I heard a motion and I heard a second, but I didn't hear him call for the vote.
Second.
I didn't, what are you saying?
There was no second.
Okay, well, I'll second the motion.
all those in favor?
Aye.
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 I'm sorry, Miss Wenig, are you in favor? Okay.
All
Motion is
those-
approved.
All opposed.
All opposed.
I'm opposed.
Commissioner Weber?
Motion passes.
Motion passes. Okay, on to the next. Resolution B, resolution number TCFC 2023 -18 to approve inducing the Preakness Apartments in partnership with an affiliate of NRP Group LLC to be located approximately in the intersection of Slaughter Lane and Capitol View Drive, and authorizing the negotiation and execution of a term sheet and other matters in connection therewith.
I move that we approve resolution TCFC 2023-18. Is there a second?
I second it.
All those in favor?
Aye.
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 All opposed?
All those opposed? Commissioner Webb. Motion passes. Okay, on to item number 6, regular agenda, finance, Subra.
Good morning. So I'm just gonna brief by exception. There was really not much activity in the month of August. The financials on the board packet is through the month of August for 8-month ending August. So what we have in the set aside is about 4.2 million. And then the regular TCFC fund is about 3 million. So,
That's all.
that's it.
Any questions for Subra? Okay. On to item number 7, board committee reports, real estate committee. We have covered
You covered it. You essentially
most of
covered it.
everything that we discussed. So item A again, it's a typo. Should be item B, the HR committee, governance committee, no report. And item C, quality of life committee.
May I ask who are the members of the HR governance committee and the building commission?
Yeah, they mirror the housing authorities, so we might have Miss.
It's me and Lola Roberts on HR, and
I don't think you've identified anybody who's quality of life. Yes.
Probably doesn't make sense to have it on the agenda. for-
They're standing.
It doesn't exist.
Yeah, they're standing if in fact they report. I mean, we could obviously not show those knowing that they didn't, that there is no committee, but. You're right, there is always a potential that the chair might designate one, but we certainly will remove quality of life from TCFC.
Okay, on to item number 8, new and unfinished business. Makes sense? Okay.
Well, I wonder if we could get a report at the next meeting about the county's reaction to the memo that we discussed.
Okay.
Yeah.
You see that
Okay.
possible on this timeline?
Yes, we will. I can commit that we will circulate it amongst the staffs, which may not necessarily reflect the position of the county per se, but they do have a committee, a subforum of the commissioners court. I'll just have to see what we are able to advance between now and then. But we will certainly make every effort, and we'll certainly communicate with staff at a meeting.
Item number 9, is there any reason to go into executive session? Hearing none. Item 10, the motion for adjournment. All those in favor? Aye.
Okay, we can move on now.